in case you need it later for reference. Okay. And I will send you the links later. So we will start by sharing my screen. So in case any MTech first year students are unable to join, means who have not joined, if you know that any of your friends have not been able to join, ask them to click on the link that I have sent so that I can approve them to join this group. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I think 15 MTech students should be there first year. So we'll see. Otherwise, I will manually add them in the next class. So as I said, just a brief introduction today, and then we will continue from the next class. So this is a 3-credit elective course, gas turbine and jet propulsion, and all the 3 credits are for lecture hours, so 3 lecture hours per week. We will have classes on, I think it is on Wednesday 11 to 1 and Thursday 3:30 to 4:30 p.m. So we'll have our classes on the regular time as given in the timetable. So Wednesday 11 to 1 and Thursday 3:30 to 4:30. So as you already know, my name is Anirvan Bhattacharya. For the MTech first year students I am saying. And this is my email ID. So I will circulate this, I will send these documents every week to you so that you have the notes. Please do not spend time on writing these things again, because already I am going to send you these notes which are quite detailed. So you just have to focus and try to understand what I am describing, and if there is any question, feel free to ask me. Okay. In between, I will also show you slides like this, so it will be a mixture of notes and slides. Notes are more details, slides are just like basic slides, just to show you some picture which I cannot draw in the notes. So the main topics that we are going to cover in this course, before I go for an introduction of gas turbines and jet engines, let me just outline what are the topics that we are going to cover. Okay. So there are two types of gas turbines that we are going to cover here. One are industrial gas turbines. My voice is breaking off. Sorry. So industrial gas turbines operate on a standard Brayton cycle, and generally used for moderate power generation. Okay, very large scale power generation is still handled by steam power plants, means thermal power plants or nuclear power plants. But when there are moderate level requirement of power generation, moderate means say 100, 200 megawatt. Large scale means gigawatt range. Okay. So for moderate level power generation, sometimes gas turbine cycles are also used. Why they are used? Because they have some advantages as compared to steam turbines. They can be started very quickly in a few minutes as compared to many hours that are required for starting a thermal power plant, means a steam power plant. So, and also if there are a lot of load fluctuations, those can be handled much easily. Means the inertia is less in gas turbine cycles, not cycles, gas turbine power plants, industrial turbines. Sometimes they are coupled with steam turbine plants to augment or to cater for any load fluctuations that are occurring. Okay, the main power is generated by steam power plants, and if there are any fluctuations, these additional fluctuations are handled by the gas turbines. So voice is creating a lot of trouble for me. Excuse me for a second. Okay. So anyway, we will learn those things. So the way the course is structured is that so there are two parts to the course. Okay, can you still hear me? Please confirm someone.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good, good. So the first part is on the thermodynamics of the full cycles. So there are two types of cycles, as I have said. The gas turbine, industrial gas turbine cycles, which work on Brayton cycle. So we will go through ideal cycles. You might have already done this in thermodynamics. It will be like a revision. And open and closed cycles, again the small modifications. Brayton cycle with regeneration, with reheat, with intercooling. So all these are different modifications for Brayton cycle. Again, you might have already done this. These are just for improving. So some of them are for improving the efficiency, such as regeneration, and some of them are for improving the net work output from the cycle. Okay, reheat, intercooling, this increases the net work output. So for the same mass flow rate, you get more work output. They don't necessarily mean that the efficiency is increased. Efficiency can be actually decreases in these cases. And we also have combined regeneration and reheat cycles, combined regeneration and intercooling cycles, and all three combined also. Regeneration, reheat, and intercooled cycles. Then we will go into real cycles. Real cycles means there are different types of losses, how to account for those losses. And we will see some performance calculation of this, of real cycles, of both ideal and real cycles in general. So the main difference, those who have done power plant course with me know that, like, so we have studied there extensively steam power plants, okay, steam cycles. So the main difference between gas turbine cycles and steam cycles from analysis point of view is that gas turbine cycles are much easier to analyze, okay, because these work on gases and we can assume ideal gas laws. We can do lot of calculations directly using equations instead of using thermodynamic tables and other tables. Okay. So as a result, what we can do, we can write small computer programs for these cases, like small MATLAB programs or small C programs, which will give us all the performance parameters for a cycle, even for real cycles, accounting for all losses. So we will see some of those. So I will show you different plots. We can generate different plots. Say if we increase the, so there are some parameters like pressure ratio. Okay. So then maximum temperature. So if we change those parameters, how the performance changes, this can be directly calculated by fitting in the equations for ideal gas laws and other types of equations, like how the say pressure temperature relations during an isentropic process or adiabatic process, things like that. So these are much easier to analyze because we can assume ideal gas laws in many of these cases. Okay. So that's why it is more interesting from that point of view, that we can do a lot of calculations, which gives us results which are also applicable in real life. Okay, so which are very useful in real life. Then in the theoretical part itself, in the thermodynamics part itself, we will go into jet propulsion. So in jet propulsion, so there are different types of engines that are used in jet propulsion. Nowadays only turbines are mostly used, except for very small engines. So turbines, there are different types of turbines: turbojet engines, turbofan engines, turboprop. Then there are some experimental engines which are not used in mass scale, but prototypes have been developed, like ramjet, scramjet, and pulse jet engine. So all this we will study. We'll study the construction, means what are the different components of the engine, how they look like, what is the working principle, and then analyze them. Their cycles are slightly different. We will analyze the thermodynamics. For the first one, we will also analyze. So there are other additional components for jet propulsion which are missing in industrial gas turbines. These additional components are nozzle and diffuser. We will also analyze them for the first case, and the same will be applicable, means the knowledge that we will gain from this can be applied for all the other cases also. And we will also look at the construction and other things. Like I will give you an introduction also on these different types of cycles. Not only cycles, means the types of engines. So not only on the thermodynamics, but also the types of engines. Then there are some other topics like thrust augmentation, afterburner, use of afterburners. So all these things also we will cover in this part. So this is the first part of the course. This will take most probably this will take up to midsem, take us up to midsem. Even we may not be able to finish till midsem, we will see. The second part of the course is on the different components of these engines. Okay, different components of these engines. There are three main components. You will see that there are three main components. There is a compressor or a series of compressors at the front of each of these gas turbines. Then there is a combustion system, and then there is the turbine or a series of turbines. Okay, we will try to understand this in a better way today. I am just outlining this right now. So again, there may be two types of compressors: centrifugal compressors. We will study about the design. So what are the different components of the centrifugal compressor, how they look like, why they look like that, and then we will do some calculation, thermodynamic calculation plus performance calculation, solve some problems. Similarly, for axial compressors, we will study the design, how they look like, what are the different stages, how the individual blades look like, then how to do blade calculation, then we'll do performance calculation. Okay, solve some problems. So after that, we'll go into combustion systems. Combustion systems are very important for gas, for this, particularly for jet propulsion, as you will notice later. Why it is it's very tricky to design. Okay, as compared to stationary gas turbines, it is very tricky to design, as we will discuss later. I will just give you a brief hint why it's tricky to design, because you have, for jet propulsion, you have very high velocity. Okay, your aircraft is flying at very high velocity. So the flow velocity through the combustion chamber is also quite high. You have to reduce it somehow. If you cannot reduce the flow velocity through the combustion chamber, the flame will blow out. Okay, the flame propagation speed is lower than the, if it is lower than the flow velocity, the flow will blow out the flame, and you cannot sustain continuous combustion. So it's very tricky to design for jet engines, this combustion chamber. Lot of nice innovations have been done in this area. We will go through this, and for this mostly we will go through the construction and different types of theory, cooling mechanisms. Okay, not much problems are there in this part, combustion systems. So the history, how they have been developed, what are the innovations that has been done in this area. So finally, we will go into turbines. Turbines are the most important part of our course. For turbines, we have to study a lot of things. We'll study from single stage turbines first. So there is something called blade diagram. So for each turbine consists of multiple blades. So how the flow moves around a blade, that is very important, because that generates the power. So we'll study that based on the blade angles, how the power is generated, how much power is generated. Then blading design, so again related to blade diagrams. Then stages, multiple stages of gas turbines. Performance characteristics, again we can do all these calculations here, because for this case these are just based on we can use ideal gas assumptions, and it is much easier to calculate. Easier in the sense that this is amenable to theoretical calculation, like we don't need any charts or diagrams or thermodynamic tables. We can just use or fit in equations and values and write programs, which was difficult to do for steam turbines. Then I will give you a brief introduction on turbine blades, because this is a very important topic which nowadays lot of organizations are working on and also hiring in this area. Turbine blades become very important because the performance of the entire gas turbine actually is dependent on the maximum temperature that can be sustained in the cycle. And the maximum temperature that can be sustained in the cycle, the maximum temperature occurs at the inlet of the first turbine stage, okay, just after the combustion chamber. So depending on the blade material and blade cooling and blade manufacturing technique, we can improve this inlet temperature, the maximum temperature that can be sustained. And even if we can increase the temperature slightly, even by 10 degrees, it leads to a improvement of the efficiency of the entire cycle. And as a result, the performance increases drastically. So over many decades, actually the turbine blades have improved drastically, means massive changes have occurred in the materials, in cooling and manufacturing techniques. And as a result, the maximum temperature nowadays has gone to very high, 1200, 1300 degrees centigrade, instead of starting with 600, 700 degrees centigrade. So we can sustain very high temperatures nowadays at the inlet of the first test turbine. Okay. So these are in brief the topics that we are going to cover. I will also give you a lot of assignment problems to solve along with the solution for this course, at least 5-6 assignment sets. There are good books on this. I will just outline those in a minute. And okay, so first let me just outline the books. So again, class notes will be essential. If you go through the class notes carefully and think critically about the material, like what we have discussed in the class and what are the questions and answers, if you again go through the video, that should give you a very good base to get a good grade. Okay. If you want to learn more, there is a very good book. It's a small book. The title is Gas Turbine Theory. It's by Saravanamuthu Cohen Rogers. It's not very expensive also. You can purchase this from Amazon. I don't know what is the price, I forgot, but not expensive. It's a small book. So first part of the course will somewhat align with this. Okay. Again, I will just reiterate. So the class notes that I am going to give to you. So I have prepared based on multiple books. Okay. So it will not directly align with any of the books fully. It depends on a lot of the books. So some part from one side, some part from another book. Okay. So you cannot just read a single book and think that you will be able to cover the course, because the course material has been taken from different parts. So the first part actually is quite well defined in this first book, Gas Turbine Theory, Saravanamuthu Cohen Rogers. There is another popular book by V. Ganeshan, Gas Turbines, used in many colleges, but I don't like this book very much. This is somewhat derivative of this first book, but they give lot of solved problems. A lot of problems are there. So if you want to practice problems, you can use this book. But if you just go through the assignment problems that I give and the class problems that we solve, that also will give you a good base. In case you want, you can also read this second book. Some of the part may be from this second book. This is also not an expensive book. You can purchase. Okay. So the best book for this course Actually, you cannot purchase. It's a very expensive book, but you may be able to get a soft copy. In case you are unable to get a soft copy, please let me know, one of you, and we will see. Okay. So, Aircraft Propulsion and Gas Turbine Engines by Ahmed El Sayed. Okay. Very nice book, but it is very elaborate. Okay. It's not. It cannot be covered in a single semester. Okay, at least 2 semesters is required for covering this book. So we will be only studying part of this. Means I have taken material only from part of this book. This book is very good for this jet propulsion cycles, and also the later parts are also quite nicely given there. Okay, but in much more details. So you might not be. You might get quite intimidated by the volume of the book. Means so much things are there, which all of them are not required. So you can only follow the parts which I have given. Okay. Otherwise, just you can go through the first book. That will give you a good base. Some parts may be from the thermodynamics book of Cengel and Bowles. It has got cut here. So Cengel Bowles is a very good book, one of the best thermodynamics books, and a few part may be from there also. Like I might have taken something from there, some problems also. Okay. Some other points regarding this course. So one tricky point is the evaluation pattern this time. Okay. So typically, again, for the benefit of MTech first year students who are new, I am just outlining. So the evaluation pattern that is followed at IIT Bhubaneswar is that we typically have 30% marks for a mid-semester exam. There are two exams, mid-semester and end semester, which are formal exams, like you sit in an exam hall and give the exams. Others already know, of course. The mid-semester exam has 30% weightage. 50% weightage is given to the final exam, end semester exam. And 20% weightage is generally there for class performance. This class performance component actually it is flexible, means it can be based on class tests. Generally, I used to take 2 or 3 class tests for this course every year. It can be based on attendance. I also used to assign a slight small amount. Let me just check something. Somebody's. Okay. Assign 5% marks for attendance, and it can be based on assignment also. I did not give any component for the assignment because there is no point. You can just copy from each other. So ultimately we will not learn anything. So it is better just to give the assignment problems and later give you the solutions, so that at least you can practice and learn without bothering about getting marks in assignment. Okay. You will try to solve on your own. So this was typically the case. Now with this online mode, I don't know about others, but what I am feeling is that the exams are not very useful in evaluating for the course. Okay, that is what I felt last time. For some reason, which may be clear to many of you, the average marks is very high and good students are suffering. Okay, average marks becomes 55 out of 60 or 56 out of 60, like this. So we will have to rethink about this evaluation pattern. So I am thinking that so let me think what to do. So maybe we will finalize in the next class. You can also give your own suggestions. Maybe we can introduce some or give some marks for assignment, or some writing some small programs or something like that. We will have to see. Okay, but I want to reduce the, so I will most probably reduce the, this time it's flexible, so I most probably I will reduce the weightage of the total examination marks. Instead of 80%, maybe I will reduce this to 60 or 70%, and I will try to increase the percentage of the class performance. Okay, we'll decide in the next class. If you have your own suggestions, you can also let me know. Otherwise, if it is only based on exams, again I am saying it becomes quite unfair, particularly for students who have studied a lot or still are not getting good grades. Okay, remember that number of grades are limited, means I cannot give unlimited number of EX or A grades. Okay, whatever grades I give are actually moderated by another committee. There is a moderation committee, and there is a hard limit to the number of EX that can be given. So there is a 10% limit. So for example, if this course has 30 students, I can at maximum give 3 EX. Otherwise, they will reduce the number of EX grades. Okay, minimum I can give 0 EX also, maximum 3 EX. A is also somewhat regulated, not there is no hard regulation, but generally it's typically maximum 20%, 20-25%. So 7 to 10 is maybe possible. Then other grades are anything is possible. Okay. So there are those restrictions. Okay. For MTech first year students, I will also say that so this is not absolute grading. So it does not, it means that if the question is tough and nobody gets higher than say 85, it does not mean nobody will get EX. Those who will perform better will get EX, but it is also not fully relative. Means if I feel that the overall performance is very poor, then the maximum student may not also get EX. But if the overall performance is very high, I will try to give as much A and EX as possible. Then we will see whether the moderation committee limits them or not. Okay, so last time, for example, our students had performed very well in my courses, all of my courses. So I had given very large number of A's, but ultimately some of the grades got reduced. So anyway, some other tips, particularly for new students: practice lot of problems outside the class. I will solve a few problems in the class. It is very difficult to solve lot of problems because it is only a 3-hour course. So we have limited time and I want to cover as much material as possible so that you get benefited from the course. You should write simple problems. This is optional. At least up to last year this was optional. This time I am thinking whether to introduce a marks or evaluation component for this or not. Write simple programs to analyze different cycles. Okay, it is very easy to analyze different cycles, different say jet propulsion cycles like this turbojet, turbofan or turboprop cycles. I can write simple programs, MATLAB program or C program, to analyze and plot the performance. Because as I was saying, we can assume ideal gas. Even if we add lot of real life scenarios like there is a fuel, like fuel is added to air. So all those also can be taken care of in the calculations. Okay. Don't try to memorize, think conceptually. Just what you should do is always, if there is a question why this is happening, try to think why actually this may happen. Okay, don't memorize. Try to think why actually this may be happening. So there might be some advantage. That's why this is there. So I will give you. So this type of questions will come up in the class during the regular discussion. Final point is something I always stress about in all my courses. Be careful about units. Okay, most of you are very careless about units. In industries, in real life, you cannot be casual about units. Okay, you might be very good in solving problems, might be very good in writing programs. Ultimately, if you make silly mistakes with units, your entire calculation is wrong. Okay, so small mistake can lead to a big disaster. Like if you are a civil engineer and if you have done lot of good calculation, ultimately you have done small silly mistake with the units, your entire design for a bridge may be wrong, and if it is not verified, the bridge may collapse in a few years or something like that, even at the beginning also. So units are very important. Okay, there are two purposes for that. One is that it also shows that you understand the problem in a better way. So for example, specific work, so unit is kilojoule per kg of say air or something like that. So if you just write kilojoule, then I understand that you are not clear about what is specific work. You are just right because it is per unit mass. So this also shows your understanding. And second is that in real life, units will become very important. Okay. So if you make silly mistakes, your entire calculation may go wrong. So with this now, anyway, I am going to circulate this material. Okay, don't copy this. We'll go into the introduction of the course. Any questions or any confusion, particularly for the first year students or from the old students? Can you see the slides in full screen mode?
Yes, sir.
Okay. These also I will circulate to you. Okay, means I will send it to you. So don't worry about this slides. So again, as I was saying, gas turbines and jet propulsion, these are very important in many applications. Okay, so I will just give you a quick introduction, and I will also show you how a typical what is the typical construction of this type of engine. Okay. So that when we go into calculations and thermodynamic cycles, you have a good understanding of the practical aspect also, without blindly just going through, say, processes and cycles. You also know in real life how it is related, how the cycles are related. They are very closely related to real life scenario. Okay. Also, I will mention that this time we have been instructed by the administration. Yesterday there was a meeting. We have been instructed by the administration to monitor the attendance very carefully. Okay. Generally, I am not very strict about attendance, but this time administration is very strict about the attendance. Okay. Particularly for first year students, because they have not come to the campus. So attendance will be monitored from the next class onwards. So I can, for this class also, I can download the attendance from the from the Microsoft Teams who have logged in. But from next class onwards, I may be taking manual attendance also because the number of students is very less. Okay. So please try to attend all the classes. Okay. It will be helpful for also the discussion, particularly if there are a lot of questions. Like in the last semester classes, we had a lot of good discussion, and because I am recording the lectures, these question answers get recorded, and it actually forms a nice knowledge base. If you study later, you can learn a lot of the questions, which are typical questions which may be asked in interviews or even in this course exams. Okay. So because some of the small questions may not be there in the notes, that's why I am saying, which comes up during the discussion in the class. So as I was saying, the two main applications of gas turbines are industrial gas turbines, which are for power plants, medium-sized power plants, which are in the range of, say, hundreds of megawatts, and also for large-scale thermal power plants, there may be additional gas turbines which generate a small portion of the power. So a small portion of the entire power requirement is generated by gas turbines, because gas turbines have much less inertia. Much less inertia means they can quickly change their output level based on the required load. Thermal power plants, whenever I say thermal power plant, I mean steam power plants, okay, or nuclear power plants. So steam power plants have good efficiency, but they have very large inertia. Means they are very large. They involve very large components, very large masses of flue gases and steam. And if there are load fluctuations, some part of it can be taken care of by the governors that are present in steam turbines. But large scale load fluctuations, are, like, you cannot quickly cater to that using steam power plants. So you have to operate at a higher load. Okay, and which means that reduced efficiency. So if you have a gas turbine in addition to a steam turbine, you can quickly cater to those kind of fluctuations. Okay. And ideally, the gas turbine power plant should also have higher efficiency. Why the gas turbine power plant should have higher efficiency as compared to steam turbine power plants? Because in steam cycles, the maximum temperature that we reach is around nowadays it's around 600 degrees centigrade, something like that. Okay, for superheated, for very high supercritical cycles, maybe somewhat more temperature can be obtained, but this is the limit, 600 degrees centigrade approximately. Okay. Whereas gas turbine plants can go to very high temperature, 1300 degrees centigrade, maximum temperature in the cycle. Okay. And conceptually, you know that this maximum temperature in the cycle will in some way affect the efficiency of the cycle, right? If the average temperature or maximum temperature is higher, although these cycles are not Carnot cycle, but you understand that from thermodynamics that if the maximum temperature in the cycle can be increased, the efficiency will be higher. Ideal efficiency will be like efficiency of the ideal cycle will be higher. So in ideal cases, gas turbine cycle should have higher efficiency, means the efficiency should be 65-70% as compared to steam turbine cycles. But in real life, what happens is that there are much more additional losses in gas turbine plants, means losses in terms of efficiency. So in real life, we get almost similar type of efficiency. Steam turbine plants are of very large scale. So for large scale systems, actually efficiency scales better. So you have good efficiency nowadays with regeneration and other augmentations for a steam power plant. We can get very good efficiency, like up to 40%. And typically, you will see later on, we will see that even the best gas turbine plants also will give similar efficiency. Okay, and if it's a very crude gas turbine engine, like old engines, many decades old, the efficiency may be very low in 20, like around 20-25%. We will do the calculations. Like small changes or small losses actually results in big changes in the efficiency, and we will do all these calculations later on. Okay. The second part is obviously jet propulsion. Okay. So most of the aircraft nowadays operates on jet engines. Okay, jet engines are actually based on gas turbines. There is a slight modification. So as you will see later, for industrial power plants, so I was saying that there are three main components, right? Compressor, combustion chamber, and turbine. So we will see that huge amount of work is actually required for the compressor. Again, I guess that all of you, like all the new joinees, have also studied thermal power plants and steam turbines, or in some way they have studied steam power plants or steam turbines, right? So, or at least for GATE they must have studied. So you know that for steam power plant, one of the main advantages is that the compression process occurs in the liquid stage. Okay. So when we increase, we have to increase the pressure, right? We have to increase the pressure in the cycle. Why we need to increase the pressure in the cycle? We will discuss these things later also. I'm just giving here an introduction. Because in the turbine is an expansion process. So there should be a pressure reduction so that we can extract work from the turbine. So the opposite should occur somewhere in the cycle, and the high pressure fluid, either steam or gas, is then heated from the flue gases or from combustion in a gas turbine, as may be the case. Okay. So this compression or increase in pressure for a steam turbine occurs in a series of pumps. As a result, what happens? As a result, because it occurs in liquid state, the work input required for the pumps is very low, right? You know that the work input is related to integral of VdP, means volume into delta P, delta pressure, integral of that. Specific volume is very low for the liquid state, so work input is very less for the pumps, less than 1% of the total power output. Okay. On the other end, for gas turbines, this increase in pressure, which is the compression process, occurs in the gaseous state. Okay. Because the entire cycle is a gas cycle, it cannot be changed to liquid. So there is no phase change. So the entire compression occurs in the gaseous state, and as a result, the work input for the compression is quite high. This integral of VdP is quite high. So compressor actually takes out lot of work from the cycle, maybe 50%, even more than 50% of the entire work of the that is generated by the gas turbine goes for running the compressor. Okay. So for an industrial power plant, if you are generating say 100 kilowatt of work from the turbine, maybe 50 kilowatt is going for running the compressor, and rest of it is going out for running the generator or alternator for generating power. Okay. On the other hand, for jet propulsion, the turbine is designed in such a way so that the turbine is actually smaller in size. Its only function is to run the compressor. So it is of just sufficient size so that it generates just enough power to run the compressor. Okay. So the entire work, that entire enthalpy that is available in the gases, again you will understand these things better. We will repeat anyway these things, but I am just giving you an outline. The entire enthalpy of the gases is not extracted by the turbine here. Only some portion is extracted by the turbine as required for running the compressor. So instead of 100 kilowatt, here only 50 kilowatt of power will be generated by the turbine. And that will be just sufficient for running the compressor. Rest of the part, enthalpy will still remain in the fluid. Okay. And this high enthalpy fluid will be expanded in a nozzle to create very large velocity, and this, as a result, you get because of this change in momentum, you get the forward motion of the aircraft. Okay. So the this from the nozzle, the fluid is ejected at very high velocity, and the aircraft move forward. Okay. There are some other applications apart from these two main applications. Please ask me. Feel free to ask me questions anytime in between. Okay. Like power generation for offshore power plants, this is like a oil rig. Okay. So offshore oil rig, where you have a large drilling system, few hundred meters below the sea level, so in the seabed, and you need to generate lot of power, and typically gas turbine plants are used. In marine propulsion also gas turbines are used, not very widely used. Typical large scale ships actually run on large diesel engines. Okay, IC engines, large diesel IC engines, based on diesel cycles. And there are some ships like large aircraft carriers, which and submarines which work on nuclear propulsion. But there are some ships which also use gas turbines. Okay. Some other offbeat applications have been sporadically developed. Many tanks actually use gas turbines. Helicopters definitely use gas turbines. Okay, I have not put helicopters, I think. Helicopters use gas turbines. Many tanks use gas turbines for power generation. Experimental bikes have been developed, as you can see from here, based on gas turbines. These are not feasible generally, very high power, but there are other difficulties. Okay. And sometimes some special vehicles, so specific purpose, like for breaking the land speed record or something like that. So those type of vehicles also have been designed using jet engines. Okay. So if you want to go very high speed, like land speed record is, I think it is I forgot the exact value, maybe 1200 kilometers per hour or something like that. Means it has broken the sound barrier. So it is either based on rocket engines or jet engines, okay, to go to these high speeds, but not widely used. some concept designs had been developed previously for automobiles also, but could not be sustained. So still we have IC engines for most automobiles, and nowadays obviously there is a shift directly towards motor driven vehicles, electric vehicles. So all these IC engines and combustion based processes, I think will gradually decline, at least for like propulsion for land vehicles, and we will depend more and more on electrical motors. Okay, so this is how the inside of a gas turbine looks like, of a large scale gas turbine looks like. There is a casing outside this. Again, I will show you, we will go through all these components. Don't worry about it if you don't clearly understand too much of this right now. Each of these component we will go in details in the course. Okay, but this is just for giving you a feel of how the entire thing looks like. So this large series of blades, can you see the diagram? Can someone confirm?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, because I am not hearing anything, so some feedback is sometimes needed. Otherwise, I am not sure whether my sound is going through or not. Okay, so this large series of blades, so these are known as rotors, as you will learn later. Each of them is a compressor stage. Okay, rotor for a compressor stage. You can see, I cannot count here, but at least 10, more than 10, 15 or 10, 12 compressor stages are there for this gas turbine. Okay. And the function of each of the stage is to increase the pressure of the air that comes in from the intake. There is an intake to the engine. For an industrial engine, there is a simple intake. For jet engines, the intake is highly designed, means the intake is actually a diffuser. I hope you know what is a diffuser. Diffuser is just the opposite of a nozzle. You know what is a nozzle, right? Nozzle actually accelerates the flow and increases kinetic energy in exchange of enthalpy of the fluid. Diffuser is the opposite. Diffuser actually reduces the kinetic energy of the fluid and increases the enthalpy and pressure, temperature, things like that. Okay. So because jet engines fly at very high velocity, you have lot of kinetic energy of the incoming fluid, and you do not want to waste that energy. Okay. So that is why you can compress slightly by using a diffuser. That means you can increase the pressure and enthalpy of the fluid by using the opposite of a nozzle. So a diffuser is there in front. Then you have large number of compressor stages, which increases the pressure. Pressure ratio for a typical, do you know what are the typical pressure ratio for steam turbine plants? Can anyone say? Steam turbine plants, what are the typical pressure ratio? Steam turbines, not gas turbines. Thermal power plants you have studied. Yes?
6.
So you have studied power plant, right? What is the maximum pressure in the power, in typically you have done some problems. It is of the order of
7
say,
megapascal.
10 megapascal, 20 megapascal, something like that, right? 22 is the critical point. So and what is the minimum pressure you have studied? It is below atmospheric pressure, maybe 10 kilopascal. Okay. So how much is the ratio? 10 megapascal by 10 kilopascal. So 10 megapascal by 10 kilopascal, 1000. So the pressure ratios are huge in steam power plants, right? For gas power plants, we cannot generate this kind of pressure ratios. Okay, there are different reasons for this, because there is no phase change. The typical pressure ratios are 20, 10, 15, 20 like this in very large scale gas turbines. Okay, not 1000 or something like that. So there is a big difference as compared to steam power plants. Okay, and each of these stages can only generate a pressure ratio of around 1.5, 1.6 like this, as you will see later. So that's why we need a large number of stages. Okay. These are axial compressors. We will also study something called centrifugal compressors later on. The stages at the end that you can see. Okay, I hope you can see it. The image size is small. You can later on see from the slides when I send it. The stages that
Yes, sir. You can zoom, sir.
I can zoom, right?
So we can zoom, sir, also.
Oh, you can zoom. Okay. Anyway, it will you get the idea. These are for the turbine stages. These are the rotor of the turbine. Okay. So number directly what you can see, number of stages for the turbine are much less as compared to the number of stages for the compressor. So this is a very important question. Lot of people ask why number of stages of turbine are less. So keep this question in mind. Later on when we study, we should be able to answer this question. Why number of stages of turbine are less as compared to compressor? Okay. It is not only because of less amount of power needs to be generated by the turbines. Like each stage can handle more power output as compared to, or more compression expansion as compared to compressor. Okay. So sometimes people ask this question, why number of stages are less for a turbine as compared to number of stages of compressor. Okay. In between, you see a blank region. Actually, there will be a large number of combustion chambers. Okay, in this region, and then there will be a casing. You can see the bottom part of the casing here. Okay. Similarly, there will be a top part of the casing, and it will be bolted together. And in the casing also there are blades or something similar to blades, which will fit in between each of these series of blades. Okay. Those are known as stator blades, which do not rotate, which are fixed to the casing, but they also serve important purpose. Okay. They redirect the flow, and they also act like nozzles. We will study all this in details. And all these are mounted on a single shaft, on a single large shaft. These are mounted, so the rotational speed of the compressor stages and all the turbine stages are same. All of them are mounted on a single shaft and aligned together. Okay, so the flow comes from one side and just goes out from the other side. This is the schematic diagram for that. Okay, so this is the typical schematic diagram for a gas turbine. This is for jet engine. Okay. So as you can see, so with this slide today we will finish our class, and I will continue. I have to show, I have a lot of other slides also. We will continue in the next class, but let me just finish this slide. You have an intake. Okay. So the intake, actually there should be also a diffuser section. It is not shown here clearly, but if I show you a typical turbojet engine, or better to show a turbofan, I think. Let me see whether I have a good diagram. Okay, so this is a typical aircraft engine, right, that you see if you travel by air. These are turbofan engines. This front part, you may think that this is just a simple extension from the blades. This is not so. Actually, this is acting like a diffuser. Okay, this is actually designed very carefully and slows down the flow. Okay, there's a slight increase in cross-sectional area and it slows down the flow before it enters the first fan. Okay, fan is something which is present before the compressor. We'll study later. So this diffuser section is present at the inlet. Then you have large number of compressor stages, as you can see. What happens at the intake? You have cold air. What will be typical air temperature? Because jet engines operate at high altitude. At cruising altitude, the air temperature may be -40, -50 degrees centigrade. So around say 220 Kelvin, 220 to 25 Kelvin. Okay, very cold air. And it is compressed. While getting compressed, the temperature increases slightly. The pressure increases around 20 to 30 times. What is the outside pressure? Outside pressure is around 0.2, 0.3 atmosphere because the jet engine operates at high altitude. If it is an industrial gas turbine, outside pressure is normal atmospheric pressure. Okay. So this high pressure, high temperature, not very high temperature, but high pressure air, it is just normal air, is passed into a combustion chamber, well-designed combustion chamber. There are different designs of combustion chamber, as we'll study later. It can be a single combustion chamber around the, like single annular combustion chamber around the shaft, or there may be separate It's like 10, 12 combustion chambers spreaded circumferentially around a single shaft. Okay, small combustion chamber. So the air will be broken up into different parts and sent to the combustion chamber. What happens in the combustion chamber? The air is locally slowed down. Okay, locally slowed down using baffles and other restrictions. And in this localized slow regions, you inject some fuel and you ignite the mixture. It's a simple combustion process. It generates, you design it in such a way so that very high temperature is generated. Okay, and the entire combustion occurs while the flow is going from the left to the right side. It's not a stationary flow like a IC engine. It is, the flow is going from the left to the right side and it is getting combusted. That is why I was saying it is very difficult to design a combustion chamber for this case. If the velocity is very large, the flame will just go with the flow and blow out. Okay, it will get extinguished. Then after combustion, you have pressure remains similar to the pressure after compression. Slight decrease occurs because of losses. Temperature is now very high, 1200, 1300 degrees centigrade, as high as permitted by the design of the turbine. Okay, so the group that is designing the turbine will set the limit that okay, our turbine can go up to 1100 degrees centigrade. So accordingly, the combustion chamber and the compressor will be designed. Okay. So now this high temperature, high pressure gas, now it is a gas, gaseous mixture, right? Typical components are carbon dioxide and water vapor. And this combustion occurs at very high air fuel ratio, unlike IC engines, unlike say diesel engines or petrol engines. Typical air fuel ratio are of the order of 50:1, means very different from stoichiometric air fuel ratio. You know what is stoichiometric air fuel ratio, I guess. Stoichiometric air fuel ratio is the exact amount of air which is required for full combustion or full reaction of the fuel. Okay. In this case, the air is up to 200-300% more. Okay, so that full combustion occurs. There are other reasons for this. If you do not use excess air, the maximum temperature will become very high and cannot be sustained. This both the turbine blades as well as the combustion chamber liner will get damaged. Okay, so to reduce the maximum temperature, you keep very high air fuel ratio. You will remember, if you have studied IC engine, you will remember that the maximum temperature in diesel or petrol engines are much higher. Okay, not 1100-1200 degrees centigrade. There are much higher temperature because maximum temperature occurs inside the cylinder, piston cylinder arrangement, inside the cylinder, not at the cylinder walls. Okay, and you can sustain higher temperature. Here it is difficult. If you have very high temperature, it will destroy the blade, damage the blades. Okay. When I mean damage the blades, I do not mean that the blades will just break off. So that is not going to happen unless there is very large stresses. What will happen is that at high temperature, there is so what happens? The blades are rotating at very high velocity, right? So there is lot of stress in the radial direction. Okay, so the blades try to elongate in the radial direction, and as a result, at a high temperature, they will elongate more because the creep resistance is lower at high temperature. And if they elongate more, they will strike the casing, leading to catastrophic failure. Okay, that is the main reason temperature is limited. And you cannot also keep the gap between the casing and the blade very large, because then the efficiency will become low, because lot of hot air will just pass through the gap instead of going through the blades. So all these little points are also very important, and we will discuss them later. So after this hot gas passes through this series of turbine blades, some of the enthalpy is extracted. Okay, and some work is generated. This work, how it is passed to the compressor, this actually the turbine blades rotate. As a result, the shaft rotates and it rotates the compressor. Okay, so it is direct coupling. So directly the work is transferred through the shaft to the compressor. The gas is still at high pressure and temperature. lower than what was present after the combustion chamber, but still much higher as compared to the inlet. Okay, so then it is passed through nozzle, and this high enthalpy value, what was present, is converted to kinetic energy. The flow is accelerated, and the enthalpy is converted to kinetic energy, and flow goes out at very high velocity. Okay, depending on the type of nozzle, if it is just a conversion nozzle, it will go out at choked condition. We'll study this, what is a choked condition, later on, like at the sonic velocity. And if it is a convergent divergent nozzle, it will go out at much higher velocity, like Mach 2, Mach 3, something like that. Okay, so gas exhaust velocity has to be higher than aircraft velocity. Otherwise, how will the aircraft fly at that velocity, right? So if the aircraft is flying at Mach 2 speed, exhaust velocity has to be higher. We'll stop here and we will continue the discussion in the next class, which is on Wednesday, 11, I think. Okay, any questions? Anything regarding other things like the course structure, anything?
Sir, at
Yes.
what position of the atmosphere this engine actually starts?
No, this engine starts at the ground level only, right? See,
Okay, so but at the ground level, the at first
yes,
the speed of the aircraft is not so much, na, when this is in runway.
correct, very good point. So, as from static velocity, there will not be any intake. Okay, so you need some other mechanism just to start the turbine. Okay, and if you calculate just based on ideal, we will just discuss these things later on. At least slight intake velocity is required. Otherwise, how will the air flow inside the turbine? So you have to start rotating the compressor blades by some other means, like by a small
Other mechanism.
yes. And as a result, some air will be taken inside, and then you can start the engine. Means then it can be compressed and the combustion can start. But it is not optimized for ground level work, these aircraft engines, right? Because the most of the operation will occur at high altitude for
High,
long
high
distance
altitude.
aircraft. So the ground level atmospheric condition is very different. Temperature is like typical 30 degrees centigrade.
Higher pressure is higher
Higher
than
pressure. At high altitude, what is the typical altitude? Do you know? Like normal passenger aircraft you fly. This turbofan aircraft generally
yes.
fly at 35,000, 38,000 feet, like around 10 kilometers,
Yes.
height, approximately. Okay, large aircraft, smaller aircrafts will fly at lower altitude. So at that altitude, the temperature and pressure is much less, and the engines are optimized for operation in those. We will also study other types, right? These are civilian aircrafts, but the purpose for military aircrafts are very different. In that case, efficiency is
Yes.
not so important. You need quick maneuvers and very high velocity, depending on the type of the aircraft. So there we forget the efficiency. We need quick maneuver, like quick change in direction, very immediately, very large thrust, and efficiency
Yes.
does not matter. So, and those also fly at very large altitude, like 50,000, 60,000 feet, military aircrafts. So they are designed in a different way. We'll discuss those also. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So this will come.
Okay, sir.
Any other question regarding course structure or anything? Okay. Otherwise, we will just stop, and please attend the classes, all the classes, because this time attendance is very important. And I will give you the materials. Just one point we have missed. We need class representatives. One from the MTech first year, and one from the old students group. Means old student means we have dual degree fifth year students as well as BTech fourth year students. Okay. So please discuss and let me know in the next class who will be the class representative. In case this time anyway, I can send you through email and other things, any details in case the class gets delayed or something. But it is better to have one class representative in case I want to contact through phone. Okay. So from old students, who will be the representative? Who are there? Sanjay, are you there? Are you happy to be the representative, Sanjay Srinivas?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
No problem.
Okay. So among the old students, BTech 4th year and dual degree 5th year, Sanjay Srinivas will be the representative. First year students, please discuss among yourself and let me know in the next class. Okay. We'll stop and thank you for attending the class.
Sir,
Okay, sir.
where you will send the study material like related to?
I will upload it in the MS Teams first. Keep on uploading. In case you face difficulty in downloading, please let me know. I will also send through email.
Sorry, sir, I could not hear, sir, the voice problem, sir. Sir, can you
So,
repeat it?
I will upload it in the MS Teams portal. I will upload it in the MS Teams portal. In MS Teams, there is a provision. Okay, you can see the materials. Let me just show you. There is a portion called files. Okay, somewhere around here you will see. Okay, the materials.
Okay,
Able
okay,
to
sir.
download, you can let me know. I will send later on through email also. But this is easier for me, just uploading here. I will also send you the links of, or you can also see the links of the recorded video from here. Okay, the videos are getting recorded, and I find it very useful to go through them later on. In case you have missed the class or some part of the class, or you like for some reason you could join the class later on, and even for just for revision, I find it very useful to just go through the video. So the video link also